Now, there's some good news on that front. This is very good news that
Great.
it is quite clear that our friend MBS, His Majesty,
Oh,
is
here we go.
trying to take. I don't want to make powerful enemies, you know. You know what happened to Khashoggi, so I don't want to be.
As if a little Your Majesty disclaimer gone save your ass.
No,
But
it
sir,
will.
I called you Your Majesty in Sunday Scoop episode 10. Did you not watch that? The timestamp?
No, I think I'll get away with it because some in the ex-Muslim community, there's some people who are really, really hardcore on MBS. I'm actually not. I think I'm beginning to like the guy.
Yeah, you'll be down the pecking order of who he'd pop off first for sure.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
Armin would get popped straight up.
Armin. Oh yeah, Armin will get popped
Yeah.
straight away. And we'll talk a little bit about Armin as well. Why Armin's view is too unpractical, and then
Impractical.
He MBS has started taking Saudi Arabia in the right direction, and a lot of Pakistanis are pissed at it. It's like more loyal than the king. They're like, Pakistanis think that they're the real Muslims. That they're like, ooh, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia knows MBS, young man. I think he's 36 or 37 years old. He's a de facto. Well, actually, the King Salman, is that the king? Is that King Salman?
Yeah.
I think it's King Salman. Yeah, so his father, Mohammed bin Salman. That's where he comes from. So he is totally fallen off the radar. And we don't know what's happening. So MBS is the guy. He's technically the leader. We might even hear that of the passing of His Senior Majesty. I hope not, but that might happen. He's quite a senior citizen. So MBS is the guy, and MBS has decided that we're gonna manage this country like we've never managed before, and he brought Salman Khan, the mighty Bollywood actor. He danced in Riyadh, did a massive concert. Thousands of people attended. And Pakistanis are pissed. Pakistanis who watch Salman Khan's songs all the time themselves, but they want Saudi Arabia to keep their people deprived of any.
Has MBS seen Salman Khan rip his shirt off and do the towel dance?
Well, maybe. Oh yeah. Well, I was shocked that Salman Khan is actually 55 years old. He's a grandpa in a way.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Saudi Arabia plans up to 600% increase in concerts next year following Justin Bieber, David Guetta's performances. So Prince Haifa bint Mohammed Al Saud just recently revealed the Middle Eastern nation's ambitious live music plans for the new year while speaking at Riyadh's music conference. So this is also Princess Haifa.
Where was this when I was there?
Yeah, well, early in the corresponding discussions, the Saudi royal emphasized that her country's efforts to grow its live music sector represent one component of the broader Vision 2030 framework. So by 2030, Mohammed bin Salman wants to just totally change the image of Saudi Arabia. We're going to have
the 2030 vision.
International resorts, people coming in. A lot of people are scared to go to Saudi Arabia. Why shouldn't they be? Like if you're holding hands with your girlfriend or whatever, alcohol. We know the UAE is the first experimenting lab for Saudi Arabia. And recently, I think a few weeks ago, we covered that they've legalized adultery, they've legalized alcohol consumption, and they also last year they recognized Israel. I think Saudi Arabia stepped short of it, but everyone knows that they've been holding talks with the Israeli government, and it's a matter of time when they recognize it. Why? Because they're opening up. They've realized that this is not the freaking 7th century desert. We have to be a part of the global community. No matter how fundamentalist you are, your Allah is not going to come from the skies and is going to take you forward. You cannot run the world on these 7th century principles. No matter how dogmatic you think you are, no matter how hardcore you think you are, as you saw, some of the hardest nuts to crack. Look at these guys. Like even the Taliban are begging the US, the UN, the international community. You have to be a part of the international community. Saudi Arabia recognizes that the world is moving towards electric cars, and the petrol prices will keep going down. They're on the decline. They're not on the rise. So Saudi Arabia recognizes that the moment Saudi Arabia it's the largest exporter of oil. The moment it runs out, it'll become very, very irrelevant. So Mohammed bin Salman, being a young man, he's going to be in power for, who knows, unless there's a revolution. He's going to be in power for 30 years or something. So he wants to take it. But what surprised me, Nuria, is that it's not only just D or well, I don't know, D or okay, correct me on this one. Unreligifying. It's not even a word.
No, it's not a word, mate.
Theologizing.
What you actually make my brain hurt.
I don't know what would be the word. So anyway, so instead of okay, well, let's just use
de-radicalizing,
but de-Islamifying.
De-Islamifying, that works.
There you go. We got there.
Got there in the end.
So MBS is not only just de-Islamifying Saudi Arabia, and which as a result pissing off a lot of people, he is also allowing free thinking. Now, this took me by surprise. Saudi Arabia allows free thinkers to talk to students. Now, this Harvard professor, a major international conference on philosophy has been held in Saudi Arabia aimed at encouraging critical thinking in a country where citizens have been jailed in recent years for expressing what are seen as dissenting views. Obviously, we know about Raif Badawi. We know there's so many people who've been arrested. The leading American philosopher Michael Sandel was among a number of highly respected academics who took part in the 3-day event in Riyadh. So he didn't go to Saudi Arabia. He actually did it by Zoom. He addressed the Saudi crowd.
Safer, mate. Safer. Clever man.
Yeah, but I think he would have the support of...
no, of course. If he's
MBS.
being invited at that level, of course. But I'm just joking.
But still, no. Well, no. You know, if Amin Nawabi is invited by MBS, hey, MBS, would you like to come and, talk about your views?
Don't trust that invite for a second.
Armin, not a good idea.
Yeah.
But having said that,
but you can go because you've called him His Majesty. So
His
you
Majesty, can go. I am a massive fan, Mr. Your Highness, Your Majesty, Mohammed bin Salman. I'm a massive fan. So screw Amin Nawabi. I'm throwing him under the bus. So Amin Nawabi. Okay. So anyway, so he's doing MBS is doing all of these things. So let's just talk about this. But Amin Nawabi, and you spoke about Lewis Hamilton, and Lewis Hamilton was, and then I think Nicki Minaj pulled out, or Beyonce pulled out. So
I think it was Nicki Minaj because of all of her LGBTQ plus fans that she was like, I can't piss them off. That's a huge portion of my following.
And Amin Nawabi said he holds the view that not only celebrities should boycott Saudi Arabia, but we should also, as free thinkers, we should also encourage and we should applaud people like Nicki Minaj who pull out, who do boycott. And Lewis Hamilton was just in the way, like he said, I wasn't comfortable. So he's halfway there, halfway. One leg on one boat, the other one on the other boat. But I reckon, and I think you said that, and I actually hold your view. You said that, no, I think we should engage them. If someone presents an olive branch, you don't shit on them. You just don't. It's not practical for MBS to just literally... for me, to be honest, it's very surprising for me as well that the pace at which he's going. He threw hadiths under the bus a couple of months ago. He gave a detailed interview. He said we can only stick to Quran, and any view that we've held that is not corroborated by the Quran, we can just throw it under the bus. And he said Wahhabism, we need to move away from this. He allowed women to start driving. Now women can actually leave the country without their male guardian. This is all in last 2 years. Even that is a lot in a highly conservative country. He could be, he's making a lot of enemies too. But because he's young and he has this iron will to just, go for it. I think, this is already very, commendable. So I don't think that we should go hard at MBS. I mean, obviously what he did with Khashoggi, that's just a dark chapter that would always remain on his resume. But what he's doing, I don't know. I can't condemn him. I think that we should encourage that, and we should appreciate that. What are your views?
I mean, yeah, it's interesting to see, like as you said, the rate at which it's happening now is really quick. Like I thought he would slow down as well, but I think it's all this hype to do with Vision 2030, where by 2030 because they'd been starting these things from a very long time ago. Remember when MBS was kind of getting almost groomed to take this role, and he was been given a lot more political power, and he was like going to all the meetings. He had already established like these ideas for cities, economic cities, to be developed within like Jeddah, Riyadh, Dammam, Dhahran, like all these places where there was actually a level of Saudiization going on, where you bring the Saudis, actual nationals, into the workforce, because predominantly it's like all the expats and migrant workers who come there to do like the hard graft work and like the work that, like, you know, any multinational corporations and stuff that are there are usually headed by like Western expats, as like on a managerial and like on the C levels and above, but then it's owned by a Saudi. But yeah, honestly, I can't knock progress where I see it. And when I see women who are able to now leave the country without needing a freaking non-objection certificate, like honestly, Dubai was the same. Like you have to get a letter which is like, I give my daughter or my wife permission to work. It seemed like the weirdest concept to get that. So thank God I wouldn't say like it's gone in its entirety. Like this is going to be a slow. Women need confidence as well to know that they're going to be allowed to travel without any hiccups along the way, or without their families kind of coming for them the second they find out that they've like left the airport. It's a whole nother like mentality thing that they need to like come to terms with and learn to appreciate and use in a way that they're like, we have the full might of the law behind us now. You can't stop us. But yeah, it's good. It's great that the male guardianship system is kind of like, it's being completely minced out. Women can drive there. These musicians, what Bieber's going to do a concert. The Formula One was there.
Done already.
Oh, he did it. Oh, so MBS is a believer for sure. He's a believer. Might not be a believer, but he's definitely a believer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so again, it's because he understands, he's young. He understands that, you know what, before religion, that's only going to get us so far. We're known as like, you know, the home of Islam and whatever. People come here to do the pilgrimage. They make a killing off that anyway. But he is very, very economically sound and very like money driven. And there's always this underlying like competition anyway between like the UAE and Saudi. So like when the UAE would be like, we're going to build the tallest wall. Saudi's like, nah, you guys think you got the biggest wall. We're going to build it like this much square foot more, so now we got the record for the biggest mall. And they've been doing that with like just the country's architecture in general. There's always like this tit for tat, like who can kind of one up each other, whereas Oman is completely the opposite. Like they have strict laws against building skyscrapers, and they're going for a whole different image to be portrayed to the world. But yeah, Saudi, I think honestly, it makes sense what MBS is doing, because even the UAE, now that they've openly started doing business with Israel, this has changed the dynamics. There's so much potential there. Like Israeli content creators, film producers, they're coming to the UAE. These people are doing amazing photo shoots on like the top of the Burj Khalifa. They're doing sky. It's just, they're putting Dubai on the map, and Saudi is like, we cannot afford to get left behind, which explains for me a lot of the reason like behind this drive for like 2030. By then, Saudi will probably, let's chat about this again in 2030 if you and I are both still around. I'm sure Saudi will be unrecognizable compared to, you know, how we see it today.
We'll talk about it in the Sunday Scoop episode 4068.
Oh my God, do I have to put up with you for that long? Bloody hell.
You love it. Don't
kidding.
Pretend. Yeah, we know that. Everyone knows that. Helen Joyce is saying he's going for the celebs over the citizens' freedoms. And by the way, some people might actually get quite shocked at this. You know, like I just said, like I can't. I have to appreciate MBS for what he's doing, but I also acknowledge at the same time the suffering people have gone through at his hands. But again, he's a person at a high level where, you know, like where they tweak something tiny bit, it just impacts thousands and upon thousands of people. Some people say, well, the prime minister changed the interest rate, and that just made so many people homeless, and then they starved to death, and hence prime minister is responsible for their deaths. So, at a high level, all these things matter. So she's saying that it's for citizens' freedoms. What else would you rather? How else would you do it? What would you rather do? Would you just say MBS to come out tomorrow and say Saudi Arabia is a secular country from today, and all the laws that includes blasphemy and apostasy, and in 2015 they passed a law that all atheists are terrorists. You expect him to just, with a stroke of a pen, change that all in a day? He already is probably, he would have tons of enemies, and who knows how many assassination attempts are being plotted against him right now. And he's still, at the pace at which he's doing, is remarkable. Yes, he is, after all, a dictator. And that's why some people say some radical changes can only be brought by dictators. Like, for example, Imran Khan. Even if he wants to change something, he can't change anything, because you have to pass a law through the parliament, through the Senate. You have an opposition. You have a media that's going to shit on you. So it's a lot more complicated than that. I take it you're trying to take a moral high ground, but it's not really that practical. So
no, but I do agree. We have to, like, I know you did say obviously like the Khashoggi incident and stuff will like forever be added to his resume, but I think that is, I mean, we can talk about what he's doing and like the rate of reform and the stuff he's pushing into action, but I do agree at some level it is very, very superficial. Like, it is purely like the same. I saw this happening to Dubai in front of my eyes, but it's literally where you're just throwing money and you're bringing in these big names and you're getting celebs and you're just getting people's attention, you're garnering that hype, but deep down you are, as you rightly said, a dictator. You have no respect for human rights. You should be literally answerable for this murder that kind of the world has just suddenly, they've had to overlook for various reasons. Like you said, this is politics, it's complicated. But I mean, I don't think, for a lot of people, even if you have like a slight affinity to human rights and putting that as like a marker for how much you respect somebody as a leader or not, then that is a forever stain on MBS for sure. And also, again, like, it's good to talk about the women's rights and stuff, but mate, how those migrant workers are treated there. Once the kafala system of them having their passports being held by their master employer and them being deprived of their salaries and not being able to go home, when they execute people, when they hold people in jail and they don't even have the decency to send that body and repatriate this diseased person back to their country, their village in Bangladesh or Pakistan or India, so that his wife can see him for the last time, Saudi Arabia don't even engage with that. They've signed on to many agreements with Imran Khan and people in his government level to repatriate Pakistani prisoners. They have been following up with MBS time and time again after he promised openly to repatriate 1,000 prisoners, I think it was. I don't know if I chatted to you about it or where I was at that point in life, but I definitely talked about it at some point, and he never, ever followed that through. So he is still a man where he is completely selfish with his interests, and it's not like a fair playing field for human rights and citizens living in the country. I could very well be in Saudi Arabia, but I'd be treated extremely differently from a Saudi national. He's almost waving the fruits of like, hey guys, this is what like a money fun-filled society looks like. This is what normal people do. They go cinema. Hey, do you want a taste of that? This is what people do when they go out to eat in like mixed groups. Do you want a taste of that? Like little things he's like peppering them with. But I definitely do think,
Helen Joyce is saying bringing more rights for the people, but this is what he's doing. Getting Bieber, etc., is all smoke. I mean, but you hopefully you understand the importance of soft culture. This is what makes people soft. This is why it's called soft culture, soft art, soft image. So these things actually matter. In inviting a distinguished Harvard professor to lecture people on free thinking. Free thinking leads you to human rights. This is why I said it's very surprising for me, because free thinking doesn't only just go against religion, it actually goes against dictatorship as well. So I don't know why MBS is going that way, but I don't know, maybe, who knows? I don't know. I'm not going to say that he's probably thinking about turning Kingdom of Saudi Arabia into Republic of Saudi Arabia. I'm not going to say that, but at the
You
end of
have
the
to
day,
be careful though as well, even with these settings, because a lot of what is being presented under the guise or the name of, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and say it was fully a free thinking, like these were actual people invited to be able to speak unfiltered. But you know that in order to speak there already, you are given such limits on what you can and couldn't say, what the scope of the subject is, what the scope of the topic is. Even when British comedians would come to Dubai and I'd go and watch their live stand-ups, they actually were like, oh, by the way, I've been told that I can't mention that. And then like when they were doing the skit, he was like, oh yeah, and then English people do this, and Muslim, I'm kidding, Arabs, I'm kidding, I've been told not to. And like it's they are given stark warning. So it always, you have to be like, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. But I fully agree, like where there is change and progress.
We're already getting the heat though. Fair enough. MBS was reportedly implicated in the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. He was cracking down on dissidents. We know that he's a dictator. So again, you're not getting the other side of it. But in a country like, you can put Dalai Lama, you can make Dalai Lama the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Even he would not have courage to say that blasphemy law needs to be taken out. So would every bad thing, every horrible thing, every horrible law that exists in Pakistan, would you put that on Dalai Lama? Doesn't work that way. But as I said, you guys are taking a very high moral ground, which is impractical. It's not going to be. It doesn't work that way in the real world. Sorry, Harris, but I agree with Armin more on this issue here. He should be congratulated on his good things, but he should also be. Yeah, well, we do that. No one is saying anything other than me calling him His Majesty. That's not necessarily.
And we did cover, like, he put that journalist away. He banged him up for, like, remember, 15 or 12 years or something. So it is like,
we spoke about that. The Yemeni journalist, we spoke about that. There's a video on that.
Yeah,
we did call it out, but again, that is, I would say that is probably, those are the things he's trying to take away, but those laws are still in place. He's not going to just overnight, tomorrow he's going to come out. But at the rate at which he's going, you don't be surprised if next month he comes out and says, you know what, with political prisoners or people who speak against Islam will not be they will not be given harsher sentences like Raif Badawi was, for example, given. Don't be surprised. I can tell you that. But even then you would find another thing and you would say, well, what about that? What about that? So
because obviously MBS is playing both sides. Exactly. And he's still playing the ulema as well, which are, they in Saudi Arabia historically have held so much power, like even more power than the royal family. So the royal family was still almost answerable to them, like kind of like the parliament and queen relationship here. It's like, but it's just a given. And now, he could have easily have said, that this doesn't warrant this much of a jail time, but he's walking a fine path. It's like how Imran Khan is always stuck with appeasing at some level the mullahs and the Islamic clerics because of how much power they wield in society. You have to walk a thin line. Yeah, for sure.
You're constantly walking on eggshells. And Harris, good point. Write it down somewhere. Change is hard in generational. Apply it universally. Ayan is saying he already has powers. He can carry on with his good things without harming anyone. No, not really. It doesn't work that way. When you're playing with religion, he might have powers, but that doesn't mean you can literally do everything overnight, everything that you want. Ayan, if I put you in his shoes, you would be a lot slower than what he is. You cannot. These people get. How many dictators were overthrown in 2011? People who had held on to power for 20, 30 years. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Hey, you know what? Struck out that law. We're going to bring... He's like, he has got advisors as well. He'd be like, okay, sir, we've already made significant changes in the legal system. Maybe we should wait for this one. We have to do that one first. And so all these things work in tandem and slowly.
If you like these videos and want to support me in my activism, then you can support me on Patreon or PayPal. Stay free, everyone.